All right, Shabbos, good morning. Good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of the sponsors for this morning's shir. To thank our annual TALMUD Torah sponsor for Tafshin Pei, the Tilson Family of Am Yisroel, for dedicating all the Sherman Droshos this year as a zechus for besuros tovos for Am Yisroel. Our TALMUD Torah sponsors for the month of Nissan, Havalin Latova Paul Pollack, in celebration of the Nissan birthdays of his wife Kathy and his granddaughter Tikveh Esther Pollack. Mazel Tov. Anonymous sponsorship in the zechus of simchos for all of our children, and for Nissan to be a month of geula sheleima for Klal Yisroel, and Avraham Shaindy Kelman in memory of Avram's mother Sara Braina bas Yehoshua Heschel zichron livracha. Our week of learning sponsors, Paul and Kathy Pollack, commemoration of the yahrzeit of Paul's father, Shmuel ben Zechariah, and great-grandmother Tziril bas Reb Dov, Zichron Livracha. We hope that in the merit of our TALMUD Torah, all of the Neshama Slavin Aliyah, the families in Nechama, all of those who need a refuah Shabbat together with Kol Choli Yisrael, the Rebbe Shalom should bring home our hostages, Bekarov, and our holy soldiers should be successful b'chol ma'aseh yedehem. Because with that, let us begin. We have a lot to do today. Baruch Hashem. Today's daf is Kufhei 105. We are picking up Am Yisroel on Kuf Dalud Amud Beis 104b, about 15 lines down from the top. We are in a beautiful Gemara right now. Let's talk a moving Gemara, talking about the Psukim from Eicha. So the Gemara says as follows: Bachot Tivkeh Balayla. So again, speaking about Yerushalayim, speaking about Am Yisroel, she cries at night. But the Gemara points out the idea that it's Bachot Tivkeh. It's two bechios, two crying. So why double crying? Shtei bechios halal lama. Why there are two cryings in this evening? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, echad al mikdash rishon, ve'echad al mikdash sheni. One cry ultimately again for the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, and one cry for the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. Balayla. So why is crying at night? Al iski layla. So it's interesting about this. There's a deeper metaphor in this. What's the cry at night? For that which occurred at night. What is this a reference to? Shneimar, we'll say very profound. Shneimar, Vatisa kola eda vayitnu kolam vayifkua am balayla hahu. A reference to Chetim Meraglim, sin of the spies. So the pasuk says that when the spies came back, delivered their disastrous report, so the entire nation began to cry that night. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Osayom mel tes ba'av hava. That night was the night of Tisha B'Av. Amar lahana Kadosh Baruch Hu, and again, so Kadosh Baruch Hu says to Klal Yisroel, Atem b'chisem b'chiyah shalchinam. You're crying for absolutely no reason. In other words, there was nothing wrong with Eretz Yisrael was perfect. Ani ekva lachem b'chiyah ladoros. I will give you a true reason to cry for future generations. A very overwhelming Gemara. Davar another possibility is balayla. Why does it say that bachotiv kebal? So we're just trying to understand the idea over here. Is that Yerushalayim is like this widow who cries. The widow cries by day, the widow cries by night. Why does Eicha highlight the nighttime cries? Because when you cry at night, the voice carries more. Since at night there's less background noise, when a person cries at night, their cries are more profoundly heard. Furthermore, again, when you cry at night, so to speak, that the stars and the constellations cry along with you. And again, I will say furthermore, that when a person cries at night, anyone else who hears those cries along with them. Now the truth is, this third answer also really builds on the previous two. When you cry at night, ultimately the voice carries. When you cry at night, the stars, the constellations cry along with you. There's this profound sense of crying. Because of that, when people hear other people crying at night, it's almost as if the crying spreads. So I'll say a very beautiful Gemara, a profound Gemara. There was a story of a particular woman. She was the neighbor of Rabbi Gamliel, and she lost her son. And she would cry over him every night. Rabbi Gamliel heard her crying, and he began to cry as well. Rabbi say, now, this is such a profound Gemara about empathy. Rabbi Gamliel would hear this bereaved mother crying over her child. Rabbi Gamliel himself would cry, literally again, he cried so much until his eyelashes fell out. To the point of like physical detriment. The Gemara said, The next day, his students realized what was happening, how much he internalized this pain, and they moved him to a different neighborhood. The Gemara goes right there. Her tear is on her cheek. Supposed to say the idea over here is tear on the cheek. Tear on the cheek almost represents this idea of crying, and the crying doesn't stop, right? The tears are always there. There are different kinds of losses in this world. There's a loss that you cry over, but then you're able to move forward, and then there are other losses that sometimes paralyze us in place. This idea of dimasa alechiyah, that the tears on her cheek, represents this second type of loss, where the loss is almost like immobilizing. The tear is always there. What type of loss is that? Like a woman who loses the husband of her youth. Bal ne'urah. Rashi says over here, shebocha tamid umitsuya dimasa. When a woman loses the husband of her youth, that's the man who she married, obviously when she was young, the person who she intended on building her life with. And when she loses that life partner, there's almost like an inconsolable loss that's there. That's how the pasuk describes the loss of Yerushalayim. Incredible. Shneimar, al ba'al neureha. Hayu tzareh l'rosh. So literally again, her enemies become like the leaders. If you cause problems for Klal Yisroel, you are catapulted to greatness. This is an interesting idea. The more you oppress and the more you hate Klal Yisroel, you'll be made a leader. You'll be made a leader. Shneimar, kilo mu'af la Hashem mutzach la ke'is harishon hakel arza zvulun va'arza naftali va'achron hichpi derech hayam avar yarden galil hagoyim. So I both say this is an interesting idea that essentially in order to hurt Klal Yisroel, you have to have a position of prominence. Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't deliver us into the hands of a no one. And therefore, if someone's going to oppress us, by definition, they're going to be given a position of exalted leadership. Amar Rava, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kalametzikli Yisrael Eino Ayif. So literally, again, whoever causes problems for Klal Yisrael never tires. It's almost as if people have boundless energy in order to be able to afflict our people. Lo aleichem kol avrei darach. Amar Rava, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, mikan l'kol b'na min haTorah. So we'll say, so interestingly enough, lo aleichem kol avrei derech is almost like saying these klalos should not befall you. So the Gemara says, from here you see kol b'na min haTorah. Now what's kol b'na? So Rashi identifies that kol b'na was an expression that meant that sometimes when something bad happened, a person would say, you should never experience this type of misfortune. That's called kol b'na. So that's the pasuk is saying, lo aleichem avrei derech. What's happened to us shouldn't happen to anyone else. We'll say first the widest lines. Kol ovrei darach, amrav, asu'uni ka ovrei al das. Di'ilu bistom ksiv. So interesting enough, we'll say, so Kadosh Baruch Hu treated Yerushalayim, right, the Jews of Yerushalayim, Klal Yisroel, as if we were over al das, as if we transgressed the tenets of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah. How so? Di'ilu bistom ksiv, Vashem himter al stom. Right, by stom it says that Hashem caused it to rain down fire on stom. V'Yerushalayim ksiv mimarom shalach ish ba'asmosa vayerdena. Uksiv vayigdal avon bas ami michatas sdom. So ultimately, again, the pasuk says that Kadosh Baruch Hu literally says that the actions of Klal Yisrael surpass the actions of stom. Bechi masu panim yesh badavar. Amar Rava says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, mida yisera haisev Yerushalayim shlo haisev b'stom. So we'll say this is incredible. That as terrible as, unfortunately, the behavior of Yerushalayim had become, Yerushalayim still possessed one attribute beyond stom. What was the attribute beyond stom? So we'll say this is incredible. Te'ilu b'stom ksiv, hine zeh haya avon stom achoseich, go. Shivas lechem biyad ani ve'ayon lo hichzika. In stone, there was no sharing, right? In stone, whatever you had, you kept for yourself, and again, nothing was ever shared with the other. But also listen to this Gemara. On the other hand, v'yilu b'Yerushalayim ksiv yedei nashim rachmanios bishlu yaldehen. Yerushalayim, the hunger, the starvation had become so acute that literally, again, the women ate their own children. I will say, but you understand, it's just like such a fascinating twist. Even when they cooked their own children, they invited their neighbors. In other words, they shared what they had with the other. Which I will say is like such an overwhelming thing. So in stone, there was such depravity, and in the midst of all the depravity, there was also an unwillingness to be able to be there and to help the other. In Yerushalayim, even when things became most terrible, people were always willing to look out for one another. Incredible. So the Gemara says, Sila kol avirai Hashem b'kerbi, ka'adam shomer lechavero, nifsala matbea zu. Like a person who says to his friend, this currency, which was once worth so much, is now worth nothing. Patsu alecha pihem, amarava, amrabi yochanan, bishvel mahektim pela'ayin. Why is it? And I remember again, in Eicha goes in the order of the Aleph Beis. Yet, interestingly enough, if you look at this pasuk, Patsu alecha pihem, that their mouth opened up against you, if you notice that pay is before ayin, even though normally ayin is before pay. So what's going on over here? Because the Meraklim said something with their mouth, even though they did not see it with their eyes. In other words, they delivered this disastrous report about Eretz Yisrael, even though it was not truly reflective of what they saw. Ochle ami, ochle lechem Hashem lo. Ochle ami achlu lechem Hashem lo karo. Amarava amrabi yochanan chalo ochem milachman sheYisrael toim tam lechem. V'sheino ochem milachman sheYisrael eina toim tam lechem. Whoever eats the bread of Klal Yisroel will taste what bread truly is. Whoever doesn't eat the bread of Klal Yisroel won't taste what bread truly is. And I will say, what does this mean? On a deeper level, I will say, bread represents sustenance. Right? Bread represents the core like pillar of existence. If you want to understand what existence is, look at Klal Yisroel. If you look at anyone else, you'll find pieces of what it means to lead a meaningful life, but you won't find the entire picture. Only Klal Yisroel has the real lechem of existence. Hashem lo kara Rav Amra Ela Dayanin. So this refers to the corrupt judges. Shmuel says Ela Malamdei Tinokos. This refers to the teachers of young children who shirked their responsibility and did not give a proper chinuch to the Jewish children. Mi minan, who appointed them. Amravashi. So that's the end of the Eicha. That's the end of the Eicha. Now the Gemara goes weiter. So now remember again, the primary topic that the Gemara is occupied in is the list of the 3 kings and the 4 idiotos, the 4 regular people who don't have a portion in Olam Haba. So the Gemara says, by the way, who compiled the list? Who decided who's on this list and who's not on this list? So the Gemara says, Ravashi, Anshe Knesset Hagedola Menom. It was Anshe Knesset Hagedola, men of the Great Assembly. Let's remember again, Anshe Knesset Hagedola was the rabbinic body that was essentially constituted from the end of the era of the first Beis Hamikdash through the second Beis Hamikdash. Right? That's Anshe Knesset Hagedola. So the Gemara said they did a lot of things, like they created tefillah as we know it today. So they created this list. So the Gemara says, listen to this. Rav Yehuda Marav, Bikshu Od Limnos Echad. So they wanted to add another person to this list. Now this is actually pretty wild. The Gemara says they wanted to add Shlomo HaMelech to this list. They both say, now remember again, we've already seen this before. It's been mentioned a number of times throughout this parak, that by Shlomo says Vayas Hara Beinei Hashem, that Shlomo did which was terrible in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the pasuk seems to attribute the pasuk seems to indicate that he worshipped idolatry. Now the Gemara qualified that. The Gemara says what ended up happening was Shlomo married a lot of women. His wives brought in a lot of idolatry, and he did nothing to stop its practice. So, in that sense, he's responsible for idolatry, even though he, Chas V'Shalom, himself never worshipped idolatry. So they wanted to add Shlomo to the list. So the Gemara says, Ba'ad dimus diyokno shel aviv, v'nish tacha lifneihem v'lo shkichu aleh. So who comes before them? David HaMelech. David HaMelech Kiviyachal appears to them, and David HaMelech, prostrates himself before them, saying, please don't do this. But they paid no attention to him. Ba'ish min hashamayim, v'lachka ish b'saf saleim. A fire came down from the heavens and started literally licking at their benches. Because again, clearly HaKadosh Baruch Hu was voicing his displeasure with this decision. But yet, they did not pay any attention to it. Remember again, Lo Bashamayim HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't decide Torah, we decide Torah. Yatsa Baskol Va'amra Lahem Chazis Ish Maher B'Malachto Lifnei Malachim Yisatzev Bal Yisatzev Lifnei Chashuchim Mishehiktim. So again, then a Baskol comes out, and the Baskol says ultimately again, have you seen a man who does his work quickly Before kings he will be. What does this mean? So Chashbar Baruch Hu said, Baskel came out and said, Mishahiktim beisi lebeso. So first of all, Shlomo built my house before his house. He built the Beis HaMikdash before he built his own palace. For not only that, it took him 7 years to build my Beis HaMikdash and 13 years to build his own palace. The Gemara says, "Lifnei malachim yisyatzev, ba'al yisatzev nei chashuchim, v'lo shkiach ala." So again, they said. So the Baskel was saying, how could such a man be consigned to a fate without olam haba? He should dwell amongst the rest of the kings. Once again, v'lo shkiach ala. The Anshe Knesset Gedolah paid no attention to this Baskel. They just felt that it was incorrect. As the Gemara says, "Yatsa Baskel ba'amra hame'imcha." Finally, we'll say essentially the Baskel comes out and says, listen, Chevra, Olam Haba is my purview. It's not yours. You don't decide who goes to Olam Haba and who doesn't go to Olam Haba, and you don't understand the Cheshbonos. So therefore, again, it's so interesting, I will say, that you see that Kadosh Baruch Hu trying to intervene in a more mild manner, although this is pretty stark as well. And at the end, essentially what he says is, yes, you're right, Torah belongs to you. Halacha belongs to you. Decision-making processes when it comes to the adjudication of law belong to you. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to who goes to Olam Haba, who doesn't come to Olam Haba, that's up to me. That's up to me. And therefore, again, Shlomo was not added on the list. Darshei Rishumos Hayu Omrim. Kulan Ba'in LaOlam Haba. I will say this is wild. So Darshei Rishumos. Rashi says over here, who are Darshei Rishumos? Darshei Psukim. Kedichsev. As Harashon Meksav, Emes Hayu Omrim Shalikulam Yesh Chelik LaOlam Haba. Chelik Afilu Lemenashe Birav Melacha. So I will say the Darshei Rishumos say everyone has a portion of the world to come. Everyone, again, I will say this was the opening line of the Mishnah. Everyone has a portion in the world to come. Even Menashe, even Yeravam, and even Achav, even the three evil kings. So the Gemara says, incredible. So, Li Gilad V'li Menashe, Ephraim Ma'oz Roshi, Yehuda Mechokiki, Moav Sirachzi, Al Edom Ashlich Na'ali Alai Ploshes Hisraoi. Who do these refer to? Li Gilad Ze Achav Shenafal Baramos Gilad. This refers to Achav, who died in the battle of Ramot Gilad. Next, Menashe. Menashe is Kimashmo. Menashe means King Menashe. Ephraim Ma'oz Roshi. Who does that refer to? Ze Yeravam De Kasim Ephraim. That refers to Yeravam, who came from the tribe of Ephraim. Yehuda Mechokiki. Yehuda is my scepter. Ze Achitofel. That refers to Achitofel, David HaMelech, Sara Braina's advisor, top of Kuf Heir Bosai, Dika Asimi Yehuda, who came from the tribe of Yehuda, Moav, Sirachzi. What does that mean? Gehazi, Shelaka al Iske Rechitza. Gehazi was stricken with Malchus because of the issue of washing. This has to do, again, I will say, with Naaman, the general of Aram, who was stricken with tsaras. Elisha tells him to go ahead and immerse himself in the Yarden. He does so. Naaman wants to go ahead and reward Elisha. Elisha says, I don't want any money. Gehazi afterwards came on his own and said, Elisha changed his mind. Now he lied. Elisha didn't change his mind, but Gehazi was using this opportunity for his own financial advancement. Okay, so the Gemara goes right there. Al Edom Ashlich Na'ali Zed Doeg Ha'adomi. That refers to Doeg. Alai Pleshes Israeli. So again, Alai Pleshes Israeli. So we'll say, so what does that mean? So we'll say, so first of all, I just want to point out, this is incredible. Right? The Darshei Rishumos, ultimately, again, I'll try to understand that everybody is a chiluk in Olam Haba. I will say, now before we go on, I'll just mention something absolutely amazing, which is what does this mean? Like, what's going on over here? And why aren't these people identified? Right? In other words, who are these Rabbanim? Who are these Darshei Rishumos? So we'll say what's interesting to note is as follows. How does Rashi define Darshei Rishumos? Darshei Psukim. There are people who look for deeper meaning in Psukim. Now what does this mean? We'll say, in life, when you look at a person, it is very easy to size up their shortcomings and their shortfalls, right? For some reason, Hakadosh Baruch Hu programmed us like with this ability to see the weaknesses of the other relatively quickly. We could just kind of like see that just when they're meeting a person for a couple of minutes. You can see everything that's broken about them. The avoda in life is to go out of your way to see the good. To see the bad is easy. To see the broken kite is easy. To see the good takes a lot of work. So you notice something interesting over here? To say that Menashe, to say that Yeravam, Achav, Menashe don't have a chelik in Olam Haba, that's easy. That's easy. Just read the Navi, and you could see why they would not have a portion in the world to come. But here's the Shaila. Do you want to be a Darshe Rishumos? Do you want to be someone who looks for the good in someone? Do you want to find someone ultimately, again, who pushes themselves to go out of their way to see the good? You see, sometimes to see the good in someone, you have to be a Darshe Rishumos. You have to be someone who's willing to look into psukim. You have to be someone who's willing to understand deeper meanings. You have to be willing to go ahead and see beyond that which is written and to look below in order to be able to find something that is good. But if you're willing to be a darshe rishumos, if you're willing to be someone who looks in the deeper meaning of the psukim, if you're willing to be someone who reinterprets the different meaning of different words, then you will find something good in every single person, even in the most evil, even in a Menashe, even in a Yeravam, even in an Achav. It's just a question of how you want to look at people. Pashat pshat, Menashe, Yeravam, Achav, Elim Chelik Olam Haba. Darshe Rishumos, which means those who want to look beneath the surface and really look to try to find the good. Because I will say, sometimes in life, if you want to see the good in someone, you have to work really hard. Because there's a lot of people who on the surface present really badly, and beneath the surface present really badly. And even a little bit beneath the initial surface still present really badly. But if you're willing to be Darshe Rishumos, dig deeper and deeper and deeper, in every yid, you'll find something beautiful. You'll find something magnificent. You just have to be willing to undertake the process. It's incredible. The Gemara goes weiter. Amar Malach Yeshua Heschel Baruch Hu Shalom Yavo David Sharages Aplishti V'Horish Esbanecha Gat Ma'ata Osalo. So it's incredible. So the Malach Yeshua says to Heschel Baruch Hu, if David HaMelech, right? If David HaMelech goes and it comes before you, Nabal says it's so beautiful. Now what happens? So according to these approaches, right, all of these people who we just mentioned, who are people who are excluded from Olam Haba according to previous Gemaras, right? Not just the three kings, but Doeg, Achitofel, all of these people now go to Olam Haba. So the Malachim said to Chodesh Baruch Hu, so what's going to happen? Right? You're going to let these people into Olam Haba. And then David HaMelech is going to see these people in Olam Haba. So David HaMelech is going to see his trusted advisor Achitofel, who turned on him. Doeg Ha'adomi, who incited Shaul to try to kill him. David is going to come to Olam Haba. He's going to walk into the base marriage in Olam Haba. And who is he going to see? He's going to see this Chavra over there. David is going to come to you and he's going to be all upset. What are you going to say to him? So this is incredible. So ma'ata osalo amar lahem alai la'asosan reim zelozeh. Chodesh Baruch Hu says, don't worry about it. You know what my job is? My job is to make David HaMelech friends with Achitofel and with Doeg Ha'adomi. If they meet each other in the base marriage in Olam Haba, my job is to make them friends, make them reim. Make them friends. Rabbi say, what an overwhelming Gemara. Essentially, Chodesh Baruch Hu says to the Malachim, first of all, stay in your lane. So which Rabbi say, we begin to see over and over when it comes to Olam Haba, the Rebbe Shalom tells Anshe Knesset Ola, he tells the Malachim, not your business. I got this. But Rabbi say, how incredible is this? If David runs into his former adversaries in the base marriage, Chodesh Baruch Hu says, my job is to make them friends. My job is to make them friends. Which Rabbi say, such an overwhelming Gemara. That maybe sometimes the ability, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just a function of Olam Haba, or maybe it could even happen in this world, that even adversaries, right, even Jewish adversaries, somehow, some way, can become reim. I don't know if it could happen in this world, or maybe it's only something that happens in Olam Haba, but at the end of the day, another thing to look forward to in the afterlife is that even the most bitter of enemies, even a David and an Achitofel, a David and a Doeg, could Amir Hashem sit and occupy the same space in Olam Haba. Overwhelming. Madua shova ha'ama zeh Yushalayim Yishoa nitzachas Amrav tshuva nitzchis Yeshiva Knesset Yisrael Navi. Supposed to say this is incredible. Remember, this is Navi Yehoshua. So the Navi Yehoshua is giving Musar to Klal Yisroel. And what happens? So the Klal Yisroel gave back a good tshuva to the Navi. They said, Amralam Navi. So the Navi, Zechariah. The Navi Zechariah said to them, Chazur b'tshuva. Go ahead and do tshuva. After all, avosechem shechatu heichan hein. So the Navi says to Klal Yisrael, Navi Zechariah says to Klal Yisrael, do tshuva. Because look what happened to your ancestors who didn't do tshuva. They're no longer here. So Klal Yisrael is great. Well, so Klal Yisrael says back, Amar lahem, amru lo, uneviachem shalochatu heichanheim. So Zechariah is not exactly a good taina. Right? Your ancestors who were Balei Tshuva are also dead. So our ancestors are dead, your ancestors are dead. So either way, they're dead. So why are you trying to convince us of the Tshuva? So the Gemara says, Shene'emar avosechem ayehem, v'anevim hala olam yichyu, amar lahem avosechem chazru v'hodu. So again, Zechariah says, your ancestors were strong enough to do Tshuva, Shene'emar, ach divrei b'chuk yesher tzivisi es adi anevim, Shmuel amar, bo asar b'nei adam, v'yashuva l'fanav. Shmuel says what ended up happening was, 10 people came, and sat before the Navi. This was the episode described in the Pasuk. Amar lahem, chizru b'tshuva. So the Navi says to them, do tshuva. Amru lo, listen to this. So this is very profound, a very profound exchange. So the Navi says to this group of 10 people, do tshuva. They say back to the Navi, Amru lo, eved shemachru rabo, v'isha shegar shabayla, klum yesh lazeh al zeh klum. So it's interesting. So the Jews said back to the Navi, right? If you have an Eved who was sold by his master, or a woman who was divorced by her husband, could the master have any expectation of the Eved, or could the husband have any expectation of his wife? In other words, both said what they were telling the Navi was that Ribono Shalom has cast us away. He's cast us away. We've been rejected by the master. We've been rejected by the husband. So what do you want from us? It's so profound. And by the way, you begin to see this. This is the theme over and over. You see this throughout the Gemara. That even when Klal Yisroel was worshiping Avodah Zarah, there was still such a connection to Hashem. And you can see Klal Yisroel, at least in this exchange over here, turned away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu because they felt rejected by the Ribono Shel Olam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu the Navi, Lechem or Lahem. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to the Navi, Eiz a Sefer Krisos imchem asher shlachtia, o mimano shemacharti eschem lo hein ba'avonosechem nimkartem, o bebeshachem shalcha imchem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is back to the Navi, ask Klal Yisrael, where's your get? Where's your get? Right? Where's the document of sale that says that I sold you to someone? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no. Don't put this on me. I didn't reject you. You rejected me, but now what you're doing is you're projecting. You rejected me, and now you're projecting on me, God, that I rejected you. I will say such a profound Gemara, so much psychology here, also in like the worship of idolatry. How again, Klal Yisrael plays the role of the victim. You rejected us. I rejected you. You spent generations sinning. You rejected me, and now you feel guilty for all of that rejection. So now you're projecting on me that I rejected you. But Chas v'Shalom, where's the get? Where's the document of sale? I never divorced you. I never sent you away. I never sold you out. David Avdi, Nebuchadnezzar Avdi. So what does it mean when the Pasuk says? It's interesting. The Pasuk refers to David, my servant, and Nebuchadnezzar, my servant. So it says, what does this mean? So people, I'm sorry. HaKadosh Baruch Hu understood that Klal Yisrael would say this. Lefichach hektim HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'karo avdo eved. V'karo avdo eved shekanu nechasim eved lemi nechasim lemi. So we'll say this is fascinating. You know, it sounds strange that HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls David his servant and Nebuchadnezzar his servant. So first of all, it's saying that always understand that when Nebuchadnezzar did, wasn't Nebuchadnezzar, was HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Nebuchadnezzar was the agent. But by calling Nebuchadnezzar the servant of God, then who's the master? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now what does that mean? Now when there's a servant and a master, whatever the servant acquires, the master acquires. So even when we were conquered by Nebuchadnezzar and under his domain, we were under the domain of the Eved, but we still belong to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, the Gemara is highlighting this idea. Never is there a rejection by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even when we are conquered and subjugated by others, those others themselves are avadim to Hashem, and being a servant to the servant still means that what? I belong to the master. It will say such an overwhelmingly profound and beautiful Gemara. Never are we rejected by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We may reject God, which does happen, and as a result, sometimes there's a feeling of guilt for having rejected God, so we project onto God that He rejected us, but there's nothing further from the truth. The Ribono Shel Olam never rejects us. He loves us too much to ever reject us. He loves us too much to ever sell us out. He loves us too much to ever give up on us. Incredible. Va'ola al ruchachem haya lo siya asher atem omrim niyach hagoyim k'mishpachos ha'arazos l'sharis eitz va'even chayaninu om Hashem Elokim. Im lo b'yad chazaka ubezor natuya ubechim shfucha im lo chalei Rav Nachman kol ki hayrischa lirsach rachmana alon v'litvakinon. Let HaKadosh Baruch Hu get as angry as he wants at us, but at least redeem us. As I say, sometimes, it's almost as if, like in a relationship, sometimes there's tension, and you're not yelling at each other, and you're not saying anything, but you know that there's all this tension building, and what do you want more than anything? Like, let's do this. Just like, get it out. Whatever it is, as ugly as it's going to be, let's just go ahead and have the negativity. Let's have the yelling, the screaming, right? Let's have the argument. But whatever it is, let's just get it done so that we can, Emir Hashem, move on. So it's almost kiviyachol what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whatever you've got, just bring it. Let's do this. We accept whatever the repercussions of our actions are, but then we want to be redeemed. V'yisru l'mishpat elokav yarenu, amra baruch hana amala navi l'Yisrael. This is beautiful, we'll say. Navi Yisrael, chazir b'tshuva, do tshuva. We'll say, you know what's really amazing? At the end of the day, we think life is so complicated. It's not that complicated. It all comes down to two words. Chazru b'tshuva. Chazru b'tshuva. Just do tshuva. That's all. Obviously, it's much simpler said than done. But just do tshuva. Just come back to me. Just come back to me. We spend our lives running away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and then justifying why we're really allowed to run, or why it's not really running, or why because I subscribe to this that I don't have to do all these different things, and it's exhausting. We invent hashkafas, we invent ideologies, we invent life approaches, all these different things to justify running away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and shirking of our religious responsibilities. And we get so tired, instead of just coming back home. Just give ourselves over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just chazir b'tshuva. That's it. That's all. I'm waiting for you. So chazir b'tshuva. So what happens? Amar lo, ein ani yecholin. This is incredible, I'll say. Klal Yisroel says we can't. Why? Yetzer hara sholeit banu. Rabbi say this Gemara is gold. So the Navi says, Klal Yisroel, just do tshuva. Just come back. Klal Yisroel said we can't. We have a Yetzer hara. And the Yetzer hara is so powerful, the Yetzer hara is so overwhelming. So what does the Navi say? What does Choshen Baruch Hu say? Choshen Baruch Hu says, Amar lahem, Yisru Yitzreichem. So ultimately, what does Choshen Baruch Hu say back? Right, essentially, put on your big boy pants, not a direct quote, right? And take control of the situation. I got it. You have Yetzer hara. I got it. Take control. See, I was saying, here's what's interesting. That statement of Klal Yisroel indicates almost like a lack of control. I would come back, but I'm not in charge. That's Yetzer hara. The Rebbe Shalom Silber said, Yisru Yitzreichem, which literally means chastise your Yetzer. Take control. Take the reins of your life. Which I will say, you understand what's happening in this conversation over here? This is what we go through every single day. I'm not accomplishing the things I need to accomplish. I'm not doing the things I want to do. I'm not the person yet I want to be. And if you ask me why it's not happening, why isn't it happening? I'm going to give you a list of reasons. Right? Now, what's interesting, by the way, is what's the commonality in that entire list? Right? It has nothing to do with me. Right? It's my father never did this, my mother never did this, my spouse doesn't do this, my rabbi doesn't do this, my teacher didn't do this, I never got as much cookies as the other kids, all the other things, right? And there's a whole list of things that are responsible for why I am not the person I need to be. And everyone else is blamed. And everyone else has a contributing role to why I am underperforming. There's only one core person that's missing from that list, one person who has no responsibility for everything that has gone down, and that's me. Chosh Baruch Hu essentially says, really? Really, this is happening in this conversation. Chosh Baruch Hu says, get your act together. Do tshuva. Don't say tshuva is not just Hashem the Bagan. Tshuva means the act of pulling yourself and your life together. And Klal Yisroel says, we would love to do tshuva, but what do you want? Have Yetzer hara? Woe is me. All these problems in my life, but not me. It's not my fault. It's nothing to do with me. It's everyone else who's not pulling their weight. Therefore, I can't do my part. Chosh Baruch Hu says, really? You're outsourcing your responsibility. You're outsourcing your success to everyone else. The success of your life resides with one person and one person only. And that's you. The buck of your life stops with one person and one person only. And that's you. Success in life is dependent on one person and one person only. And that is you. So rein it in. Rein it in. Take control. If you notice, by the way, Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't say it's not a struggle. He validates the struggle. Struggle is a struggle. But I have control over whether or not I navigate, how I navigate that struggle. To which Klal Yisroel says, Amrulo Elokav Yarunu. Well, Hashem, you created it, so you need to deal with it. It's interesting. In other words, Klal Yisroel says, essentially, you made the mess, you clean it up. Right? We didn't make the Yetzer Hara. We didn't ask for the Yetzer Hara. So you created it. So because you created it, ultimately, again, you have to deal with it. So we'll say, by the way, that's how the Gemara ends. That's how it ends. So by the way, so the Klal Yisrael do tshuva or not? Klal Yisrael do tshuva or not? No. Why? How do we know they didn't do tshuva? Because the conversation goes back. It's a circular conversation. Because Klal Yisrael once again says, well, God, it's your problem, not my problem. You created the Yetzer Hara. You did this, so you clean it up. And I will say, tshuva never happens. Because when I fail to take responsibility for my tzivos, we're so scared of taking responsibility. Because what happens when you take responsibility? We all know. What happens if I take responsibility? If I take responsibility, then I have to look in the mirror and I have to recognize that almost all of the failures in my life are mine. They're my failures. And that hurts. And that's difficult. And that's painful. And most of us do not want to deal with that pain. So instead, we spend a lifetime running from responsibility and attributing fault to anyone and everyone else around us. And so we never take responsibility. Can't do tshuva. And instead, if we just found the courage just to say, okay, I own it. It's me. Yeah, almost every single thing that's gone wrong in life is me. I own it. But here's the good news. Once you overcome that pain and that feeling of almost like debilitating shock of responsibility for things that haven't gone right, you then realize something amazing. Like Rabbi Nachman says, if you believe that you have the ability to break it, then you have the ability to fix it. The reins are then mine. And once the reins are mine, there's no telling what I could accomplish. I could become a Baal Tshuva. I could fix my life. I could do what I need to do. But the tragedy is the conversation ends off the same way it's ended off for the last 2,000 years. Moshe, it's your problem. It's always someone else's problem. Well, if it's someone else's problem, chances are it's never going to get fixed. But if we find the courage to own it, then we can become true Baalei Tshuva. Arba Hedyotos, who are the four Hedyotos who don't have Olam Haba? Bilam, Doeg, Achitofel, Gechazi. So Bilam, below Am. Suppose there's some interesting Gemaras about Bilam over here. What is his name? Bilam. So Bilam means below Am, without a nation. Davar Acher, Bilam, Shebala Am. Literally, again, he brought down a nation. That's actually, we're going to see, that's a reference to the fact that even though Bilam was unable to curse us, he's the one who gave Balak the idea about the immorality with the Midianite women. Ben Ba'ar, Sheba al Be'ir. Why is it called Ben Ba'ar? Because he had relations with his donkey. We'll come back to that in just a bit. Tana, so the Gemara says, Tana, Hu Ba'ar, Hu Kushan Rishasayim, Hu Lavan Ha'arami. That's pretty wild. So Bilam's father was Ba'ar. So the Gemara says, by the way, this guy Ba'ar, he's Ba'ar, he's Kushan Rishasayim, and he's also Lavan. Wow. He's also Lavan. So the Gemara says, Ba'ar, Sheba al Be'ir. So ultimately, he's called Ba'ar because he had a relation with the donkey. Kushan Rishasayim, he's called Kushan Rishasayim, the Avid Shtei Rishios Yisrael, because he did two terrible things. To Klal Yisroel, right? Achaz b'mei Yaakov, v'achaz b'mei Shvot HaShoftim. One was during the days of Yaakov. That'd be a reference if he was Lavan, and the other during the days of Yehoshua. Okay, so the Gemara says, Rashi says over here, la'achar misas Yehoshua, after Yehoshua died. Okay, the Gemara says, Umashmo, what was his actual name? Lavan ha'arami. His actual name was Lavan. Interesting. So the Gemara says, Ksiz, which I will say, by the way, would then indicate to us that Bilam was the son of Lavan. Bilam was the son of Lavan, which is pretty incredible. So the Gemara says, in general, by the way, they would also make Lavan incredibly old. So what do these things actually mean, right? That doesn't mean that it's actually Lavan and these people are just blessed with longevity. Someone who possessed the same midah, because remember, you could see a similarity between Lavan and Bilam, right? Both of them wanted what let's see, in Yom what do we say? What do we say in the Haggadah, in Magid? Lavan bikesh la kar es hakol. Right? Lavan wanted to uproot everything. What did Bilam? Bilam bikesh la kar es hakol. Both of them had the same stated mission. So the Gemara says, Ksiv ben Bar, Ksiv beno Bar. So it says, the son of Ba'ar. So in one pasuk says that Bilam is the son of Ba'ar, and then it indicates that Ba'ar was the son of Bilam. Which one is it? Am Rabbi Yoshua, I'm sorry. Good. Am Rabbi Yochanan, Aviv, benohu lebnevios. So in certain respect, Ba'ar, right? Ba'ar was the son of Bilam, the son of his son when it came to prophecy. In other words, his father was Ba'ar, the son was Bilam, but Bilam was a greater prophet than his father, and therefore he's a father to his father in the realm of prophecy. Okay? Bilam, hu d'lo asi la'amad asi. So here's what's interesting. Now, the fact that it says that Bilam doesn't go to Olam Haba, what does that seem to indicate? That other Gentiles do go to Olam Haba. That non-Jews go to Olam Haba as well. To which the Gemara says, Mas Nisin money. Then this is an interesting machlokes. Whose opinion does this reflect? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehoshua, he designed Rabbi Lazar Omer, Yashuva Rishon L'Shola, Kol Goyim Shechech Elokim. So we'll say, so the passage says, Yashuva Rishon L'Shola. What does it mean that it says the wicked will go to the Sha'ol to Gehenna? Elu Poshe Yisrael. This refers to the sinners of Israel. Kol Goyim Shechech Elokim. All the Goyim who forget Hashem. Elu poshe ovdei kochavim. And I was saying that this is interesting. If you notice over here, you see in the Gemara, you have a little bit of a yud base. So that changes, by the way, if you look over here, it says, Elu umos ha'olam. Really, it's supposed to say, this refers to the nations of the world, who do not have a portion in the world to come. So how did it become poshe ovdei kochavim? If you look in Agos Etzinim, it says, right, defus yad lefi hasensor. This Gemara was censored. This was a censored Gemara. It originally said that, again, members of the nations of the world do not have a portion in the world to come. All of them. That Olam Haba is for Jews. Olam Haba is for Jews, not for the nations of the world. The censors changed it ultimately, again, to say the sinners of the nations of the world don't go to Olam Haba, but everyone else does. The Rebbe Lazar, Am Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Yoshua says, one second, V'chin hemar, kol b'chol goyim, V'alo ne'emar, elo goyim shreche elokim, el yashuv rishon l'shola. Who does that refer to? Man ninhu, kol goyim shreche elokim. Shabbos say, what you see here is something very fascinating, a general machlokes. Do the nations of the world go to Olam Haba or not? So one opinion says yes. Only those who forget Hashem amongst the nations of the world don't go to Olam Haba. And other opinion says no, Olam Haba is only for Jews, not for the Umos Olam. Fundamental machlokes. Okay. Ba'af osa Rasha nasan simen be'atzmo. Even Bilam himself, obviously, our Mishnah clearly subscribes to the idea that the nations, righteous Gentiles, do go to Olam Haba, right? Because again, otherwise, why are you excluding Bilam from Olam Haba? So our Mishnah clearly sides with the idea that Allah Chalamayim, righteous Gentiles absolutely do go to Olam Haba. Okay. So the Gemara says, even Bilam himself gave a siman. What was the siman? Amar Tamos Nafshi Mosi Sharim. Im Tamos Nafshi Mosi Sharim Teacharisi Kamo. Im Lav Hinni Holech La'ami. So Bilam himself said, if I die a natural death, then that is indicative of the fact that I'm going to Olam Haba. If I die an unnatural death, that seems to indicate that I'm not going to Olam Haba. Now, of course, Bilam didn't die a natural death. He was killed. So it indicates he didn't go to Olam Haba. So remember again, this is going back to the Bilam story. So the elders of Moab and Midian come to try to recruit Bilam. Tana, Midian and Moab lahayalem shalom e'olam. Both is incredible. The nations of Midian and Moab did not get along at all. So much l'shnei kalavim shayu. So yet here they're collaborating. So what's going on over here? It's incredible. Mashal l'shnei kalavim shayu be'eder v'hayu tzuhuvin zelazeh. It's comparable to two dogs, right? Who really did not get along, right? Always a lot of animosity. Ba ze'ev ala echad. So what happens? A wolf attacked one of the dogs. So the other dog says, Amra achar im ini ozro hayom. yom, horek oso, ulamachar ba'alai. So the second dog says, listen, if I don't help the first dog, even though I really don't like him, today the wolf is going to kill him. What's going to happen? Tomorrow the wolf is going to come and kill me. So therefore, again, it is better for me to partner with my dog. Essentially, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Right? The idea over here, so even though the dogs didn't like each other, they united. Same idea. So Midian and Moab did not get along at all, but they had a common enemy of Klal Yisroel. Therefore, they teamed up together. Amar Papa Hainu Dami Inshi Karkushta Veshunra Avdu Hilula Metabra Debish Gada. Literally translated, the weasel and the cat had a feast from the fat of the one with bad mazel. Again, one of those ones that doesn't translate so well, right? Much better in the original Aramaic. So apparently the idea is cats and weasels don't get along, but when they face a common enemy, they're willing to gang up together and feast on their vanquished enemy. So Vayeshu, sorry, Moav im Bilam. So Gemara says that so they come to Bilam, and then the pasuk says that the messengers of Moab stayed with Bilam. So the Gemara says, 1 second, sorry, Midian Heichanazel. Where did the guys from Midian go? So Kevin Damar Lahu, Linu Pa'alai Levashivosi Eschem Davar Amar Amru Klum Yesh Av Shesone Espino. So the messengers of Midian realized that once Bilam was unable to give them an immediate answer, right? Because they say to Bilam, come, curse Klal Yisroel. And Bilam says, you know what? Stay here tonight and I'll get back to you. They realized that once Bilam wasn't able to give them an immediate answer, something was going on. It wasn't going to work. And they said, Chash Baruch Hu is not going to go for this. Is there any such thing as a father who despises his son? The Baal Shem is our father. So the messengers of Midian realized Chash Baruch Hu is not going to curse them. He's just not going to curse them. So they went home. Amrav Nachman, chutzpah, this is incredible. Chutzpah, afilu klape shmaya mahani. So chutzpah is a very powerful tool, right? And chutzpah, even against the Kadosh Baruch Hu, is able to affect change. How so? Listen to this. Meikarak siv, lo selichim moim. In the beginning, when Bilam asked the Kadosh Baruch Hu to go and curse Klal Yisroel, so Kadosh Baruch Hu says, don't go with them. But yet, amazingly enough, Bilam persists, ulubasof, kum lech itam. It says, go with them. Go with them. I was about to say, so what do you see from here? Bilam was chutzpahdik, right? Bilam was chutzpahdik, but chutzpah sometimes pays off. I was about to say, we know this in life. Sometimes, chutzpah usually is understood in a negative way, but sometimes chutzpah could actually have very powerful and positive repercussions. Again, not for Bilam. For Bilam it did not work well, but again, you see from here that when a person is adamant about something, sometimes even HaKadosh Baruch Hu admires, so to speak, they're adamant. Chutzpah is like a king without a crown. Now, a king without a crown has the ability to affect some level of change, not complete change, but has the ability to affect some level of change. By the way, this goes back to yesterday's daf. Remember again the story we saw about the two Jews being taken captive? Well, right, what did the captors say? Am Yisroel. Being a stiff-necked people, that's chutzpah. Jews have chutzpah. Chutzpah is part of what's kept us, right? Chutzpah, the stiff-neckedness of Klal Yisroel, ultimately, again, is what has sustained us throughout the ages. Chutzpah is powerful if used in the right way. Bilam was crippled in one of his legs. He limped. Shimshon was crippled in both of his legs. Bilam was blind in one eye. Good. Kosein ba'amasai. Furthermore, interestingly enough, he did sorcery with his makom milah. All right. I don't know. All right. So Gemara says, Ksiv hacha. It says over here, nofel v'hek. Yeah, okay. Nofel v'galoy einayim uksiv hasam v'hinei hama nofel alamita. So lashon of nofel has like a connotation of intimacy. So you see from here that again, his sorcery was done with the makamila. Itmar Marzutra Amar Kosein ba'amasohaya. Marzutra said that again he did sorcery again with his makamila. Marbid Ravina Amar Sheba al Asono. Others say no, what it means is he engaged in immorality with his donkey. It was right, the Gemara says. So good. So the one says that he did sorcery again with his amos, so that we just saw before. How did that have relations with his donkey? Ksiv hacha kara shachav uksiv hasam bein ragla amud beis Kara nafal shachal. So we'll say use the same lashon over here of kara, right? Literally crouching over. That's the same lashon that's used by Sisra and Yael, where according to the Medrash, she had relations with him. Vayodea das elyon, and ultimately again, so Bilam knew the das of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashta das behemta lo havayada, das elyon havayada. So again, if Bilam couldn't control his donkey, right? In other words, we know the story, right? Where Bilam, the donkey refuses to move forward because the donkey sees the malach, the angel with the outstretched sword in front of him. And Bilam doesn't see it. Bilam keeps hitting his donkey to move forward. So the Gemara says Bilam couldn't control his donkey, and he knows how HaKadosh Baruch Hu works. So this is very interesting. So the Gemara says, my das behemto, the amri lei. So listen to this. So what does it mean that he cannot control his donkey? The amri lei is very interesting because ultimately, again, the ministers of Moab said to him the following. The amri lei, my tamalo rachavta susya. So this is very interesting. When Bilam finally goes with the ministers of Moab, the ministers of Moab were surprised that he was going on a donkey. They said, "Where's your horse? Where's your horse?" Right? Well, what's going on over here? So we'll say, Amar lahu, Shaddai Birativa. So we'll say, this is great. So Bilam says, oh, you know what? Like, can you imagine like asking him, like, you know, why are you in a Honda? Right? A guy like you, right? The guy like you should be, I don't know, what you know, where's your Cadillac? You know, so he says such thing. He says, oh, this is a loaner. It's in the shop, right? You know, my horse is out. You know, my horse is out, it's grazing. It's doing its thing. Birativa literally means like in the marshlands. Amrale, halo anochi asoncha. So we'll say, so now the donkey begins to speak up. The donkey says, really? I'm a loner? I'm your donkey. So Bilam says, yeah, you're my donkey, but lati'ina ba'alma. I don't really ride on you. I just use you to go ahead and transport stuff. You're like my you're my hitch. You know, you're my U-Haul hitch that I usually go ahead and put on my luxury vehicle. Right? My horse. I would never chas v'sholom be caught dead on a donkey like this. So the donkey says, really? Asher achavta alai. What are you talking about? You use me all the time. You ride on me all the time. Bilam says, no. Akrai ba'alma. No, that's not true. Sometimes I ride on you again when my primary form of transportation is in the shop. Me'od chad hayom hazeh. What are you talking about? You've been riding on me again for forever. V'lo od ela shani oselecha my seishos balayla. Okay, all right. And furthermore, again, the donkey says, right, literally again, donkey says, I provide many services for you. Right? Transportation and other. Right? So the donkey, I'll say, by the way, what's fascinating about this is, you almost see it's interesting, like the donkey is like saying to Bilam, at least a dia makir tov. At least, you're such a manuvel, right? You're such a base and disgusting guy, right? What you do to me and with me, at least recognize the role that I play in your life, right? You want to be a degenerate, you are a degenerate. Don't be an ingrate and a degenerate, right? It's incredible. So the Gemara says, Ksiv hacha haskin iskandi, ksiv hasavatila sochenes. As well as obviously again, Bilam as the guy is arguing with his donkey. So what does it mean that he knew HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So the Gemara says, Shayodea lechavein osa shah HaKadosh Baruch Hu koisba. What Bilam knew was the exact moment that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets angry at. In other words, we'll say that Rebbe Shalom gets angry for just one moment a day. Bilam knew that exact moment. Ami secharna ma'yadz balak melech Moav uma'ana osa Bilam ben Ba'ar minashitim ala Gilgal lemandas tzedakos Hashem. What does it mean that again, when Bilam was trying to curse you, what does it mean the righteousness of Hashem? My lemandas tzedakos Hashem. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael du'una kama tzedakos asisi imochem. No, when Bilam was trying to curse you, how much tzedakah I did with you? How so? Shelo ka'asti kol osan yom b'mei Bilam ha'rasha. Remember again, Bilam knew the exact moment that God got angry. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I did a miracle. All the days that Bilam was trying to curse you, I did not get angry for one moment that entire time. So the Gemara says, because had I gone ahead and gotten angry that entire time for that one moment, if Bilam would have cursed you during that one moment, it would have destroyed you. If Bilam it would have destroyed you. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, miraculously, I did not get angry at you at all during that entire time. So the Gemara says, so what I said, interestingly enough, this is what Bilam was saying to Balak. Balak, I've got it all figured out. I know that if I curse Klal Yisroel during the one moment when Akadosh Baruch Hu gets angry, I can destroy them. But I don't know what to tell you. God's not getting angry. And because God's not getting angry, therefore what? I am powerless to curse Klal Yisroel. I will say, mid-story, I'm leaving over here a little bit of a cliffhanger. And we'll finish up with Bilam tomorrow. Shkayach, everyone. Tremendous.
We're on a roll over here. Sunday, Monday.
Incredible.
Best of
Sound effects in here.